Hello everyone, welcome to the course of Clinical Microbiology for MSc Part 2 in Microbiology. We started with Credit 1, Determinants of Microbial Pathogenicity. In today's topic, we'll be mainly talking about virulence genes and the structure of pathogenicity islands. So, in the chapter Determinants of Microbial Pathogenicity, we had already talked about different processes which are involved in the process of establishing a successful infection or causing a disease. The first step was adherence, which is adhesion of the bacteria in a particular tissue. Second was to increase the initial number of bacteria at the site of adherence so that they can colonize in that specific tissue or cells. The third step was synthesis of invasions to invade inside the tissue and get entry into the bloodstream. The fourth step was the ability to evade the host defense mechanisms. And the fifth step was to study the production of toxins which are able to cause disease in the host cells. In today's video, we'll be mainly talking about virulence genes and pathogenicity islands. So, virulence genes produce virulence molecules. That is, these molecules are accountable for bringing about pathogenicity in an organism. These genes confer a number of advantages to the pathogens. It is possible to understand the pathogenesis of infectious disease by understanding these three conditions. First and foremost was the discovery of bacterial etiology. That is, bacteria are the cause of disease in most cases. The second was the ability to purify and characterize the toxins produced by the bacteria. The third was to study genomic evolution. So these virulent genes are usually transferred by the mechanism of horizontal gene transfer, which led to the discovery of pathogenicity islands, also commonly known as the PAIs. So since the discovery that bacterial etiology is the cause of many illness, there has been always much interest in understanding the pathogenesis of infectious disease. In this, we are basically trying to see that the bacteria are responsible for causing disease, and if bacteria is present, what are the signs and symptoms? So a major step towards this goal came from the discovery that many bacteria have the capacity to release toxins. So toxins are nothing but poisonous substances or metabolites produced by bacteria. These toxins, when purified, can reproduce the signs of disease caused by a respective pathogen. A very good example is that of the diphtheria toxin produced by Corynebacterium diphtheriae. So studies on bacterial toxins are responsible for the degree of pathogenicity or of a microorganism gave rise to the concept of virulence. So nowadays what we have actually done is the toxins can be obtained in a pure form, and we have already characterized these toxins. Due to their characterization and study, we can relate their presence to the degree of pathogenicity or virulence of a microorganism. Due to this, we can come up with the concept of virulence factors. So, biochemical characterization, as I said earlier, of activities of purified toxin can now be used for development of an proper understanding of pathogenesis of a disease caused by toxigenic bacteria. And the knowledge gained from these studies can thus provide a clear picture of the disease process that seamlessly connects research into bacterial pathogenesis with clinical infectious diseases. So, identification of virulence factors led the foundation for development of strategies of treatment. See, once we have identified the virulence factors of a particular bacteria, then we can easily develop neutralizing antibodies or antitoxins. Research into bacterial toxins thus made microbiology relevant to the infectious disease physicians. The success of vaccine against diphtheria, whooping cough, tetanus is evidence to the power of driving new intervention strategies from a thorough understanding of the main bacterial factor. This means that because we have studied and identified isolated the toxin producing genes as well as we were able to characterize the toxin, we have not only developed vaccination but also treatment strategies by understanding these virulent factors. However, in case of non-toxigenic bacteria, finding the cause of pathogenesis of an infection is more complicated and could not be reduced to a single factor such as a toxin. The biology of non-toxigenic bacteria is complex and involves various bacterial and host factors. Owing to the multifactorial nature of molasses or disease causation, study on a single virulence factor frequently do not explain how pathogens cause a particular symptom in a patient. So, to understand this, one needs to study the molecular basis of pathogenicity and find out the factors which are affecting the end cause of disease. So, for this, we usually study the pathogenicity islands. So, as we all know that pathogenicity islands are a distinct class present inside the genomic islands. They are mainly acquired by horizontal gene transfer, for example, by processes such as conjugation, transposition, or phage mediated transfer. These pathogenicity islands can be integrated into the genome of pathogenic bacteria. They are usually absent from the non-pathogenic organism or relative of the same species of bacteria. The pathogenicity islands are relatively large genomic islands whose size ranges from 10 to 200 kilobase pairs. The PAIs encode genes contributing to the virulence of the pathogen. For example, pathogenicity island genes code for adhesins, toxin, ion uptake systems, or invasins, each of which is responsible for enhancing and causing disease in the host cells. A bacteria can have more than one pathogenicity island. For example, Salmonella has 5 pathogenicity islands. They are usually found in gram-negative bacteria and a few gram-positive bacteria as well. Now let us move on to certain characteristic features of the pathogenicity islands. The pathogenicity islands are located on the bacterial chromosome, or they may be found as the part of a plasmid. A very characteristic and important feature which demarks or helps in identifying the pathogenicity islands from other genomic islands is that it has a very high guanine plus cytosinin content. The pathogenicity islands are usually flanked by direct repeats. Direct repeats are the same sequence of base pair at the two ends of the pathogenicity island genes. They are associated with the tRNA gene, which is the target site for the integration of the pathogenicity island into the core genome. So the pathogenicity islands have the ability to move from one tRNA locus to another tRNA locus. For doing so, they can be present either on the chromosome or the plasmid. The availability of a large number of genomic sequence of pathogenic bacteria is available. Due to the vast increase in sequencing and decrease in cost, we are now known to have data banks for large number of sequences. These sequence similarities between pathogenic and non-pathogenic bacteria can be identified, and the sequence of virulence factors which are allotted in the bacteria due to the pathogenicity islands can be pinpointed out. So this actually helps in identification of novel pathogen specific genomic islands. The PAIs are mainly acquired during speciation process of the pathogen. Let us now move on to study the structure of pathogenicity islands. As you can see in this diagram, there are two distinct regions. The first one being the core genome and the second being the pathogenicity island inserted or integrated inside the core genome. So, the pathogenicity islands are frequently associated with mobile genetic elements. That is, presence of direct repeats. They are often flanked by 16 to 20 base pair perfect or almost perfect direct repeats. So as you can see in the diagram, the pathogenicity islands begin with and end with two triangles. These triangular sequences indicate presence of direct repeats which are 16 to 20 base pair longs. These direct repeats may perfectly align with the site specific integration sequence on the core genome, or they may also align imperfectly. Direct repeats usually arise by site specific integration of the pathogenicity islands into the target site. Pathogenicity island boundaries are determined by direct repeats, as I said earlier, indicated by triangles in the diagram, and they are used for insertion or deletion of these genes present in the pathogenicity island into the host chromosome or their excision. The characteristic feature of the pathogenicity island is a GC content. This GC content is different from that of the core genome. As you can see in the diagram, the GC content of the core is markedly different from the GC content present in the pathogenicity islands. And this feature is often used to identify novel PAIs. As I mentioned earlier, that due to increased availability of sequencing techniques at a low cost, we can actually analyze the GC content of a number of bacteria and compare the pathogenic and non-pathogenic strains in the same species family. This difference in the GC content help us identify the novel pathogenicity island genes. These direct repeats are the sites which can be recognized on the basis of their sequence for enzymatic excision of the pathogenicity island from the core genome. The pathogenicity island are known to harbor functional or cryptic genes. These genes are known to encode enzymes such as integrases or transposase. So in the diagram, next to the first direct repeat at the beginning, one can see the presence of an integrase gene which will help this particular PAI to integrate into the core genome. They can also contain factors other than integrases or transposase, such as the factors related to plasmid conjugation system or Phage involved in the PAI or the pathogenicity island transfer. Basically, these genes will confer a mobility element to the pathogenicity island. These mobility elements are frequently interspaced from one another. Along with the integrase or the cryptic genes, there is presence of insertion elements in the pathogenicity islands. These insertion elements can either be complete insertion elements as indicated by ISC in the diagram, or they can be remnants or imperfect insertion elements known as defective insertion elements. This is shown as ISD in the diagram besides the complete insertional elements. These insertional elements are chromosomally integrated conjugative transposon plasmids or phages. These insertional elements will help in mobilizing the genetic material or deleting the DNA from the core genome. As you can see, the pathogenicity islands are inserted in the backbone of the tRNA genome or the host strain in a very specific site, that is the tRNA or tRNA-like genes. Mobility genes such as the integrases are located at the beginning of the island. The pathogenicity island harbor a number of genes known as the virulence genes. In the diagram, the virulence genes are indicated as V1, V2, V3 and V4. These genes are responsible for secreting virulence factors associated with pathogenicity of the microorganism. The pathogenicity islands are genetically unstable. This is mainly due to the presence of mobility elements, which gives the PAI an ability to move from one space to another. So their structure is mosaic, as they can be acquired by a number of mechanisms. And during the transfer, due to mutations, that is additions and deletions of certain genes, a specific PAI structure cannot be retained. So let us move on to the mechanism by which the transfer of pathogenicity islands occur. So as you can see in the diagram, the upper part or the first, there is a bacteria which is having a core genome. A pathogenicity island containing an integrase and gene 1, 2, 3 is trying to enter into the area and get integrated with the core genome. So the first step is the acquisition of the pathogenicity island by horizontal gene transfer. The second step is integration of this horizontally acquired pathogenicity island into the core genome of the host cells. This integration is mainly carried out by host chromosomes by site-specific recombination. The third step is development of a modified or an integrated genomic island by genetic rearrangement. So as you can see, this genetic arrangement can either be due to gene loss or gene acquisition. So in the 3A diagram, you can see that the core genome has lost the gene number 2, whereas in the 3B diagram, you can see that an additional TN gene has been acquired by this particular modified core genome and pathogenicity island. The last step is excision from the chromosome so that this particular genomic island can get integrated with yet another bacteria. So lastly, there is transfer of this, after excision, there is transfer of this pathogenicity island to another bacteria, which will acquire this again by the process of horizontal gene transfer. So the acquisition of PAI is known to be an ancient evolutionary event. This event led to the appearance of bacterial pathogens on time scale of millions of years. They may also represent a mechanism that contributes to the appearance of new pathogens within the human lifespan, as they are continuously, as a number of pathogenicity islands are continuously getting acquired and being lost. There may be addition and deletion in some of the virulent factor encoding genes. This can lead to development of new strains with novel pathogenicity islands. The acquisition of knowledge about the pathogenicity islands, their structure, the mobility of the PAIs, and the pathogenicity factors which they encode is thus helpful in gaining the acquisition of knowledge about the pathogenicity islands, their structure, the mobility, and the pathogenicity factors they encode is thus helpful in gaining a better understanding of bacterial evolution. It is also helpful in understanding the interactions of pathogens with the eukaryotic host cell. The pathogenicity islands may also have important practical applications, such as providing delivery systems for vaccinations and tools for development of new strategies for therapies against bacterial infections. So now to summarize the pathogenicity island, there is a characteristic base composition difference, that is higher GC content from that of the core genome. The PAIs can thus be recognized by nucleotide statistics, that is the cumulative GC skew of the tetranucleotide frequencies and codon usage will usually differ from the rest of the chromosome, and they are mainly inserted adjacent to the tRNA gene. So these are the references. Thank you so much.